Hello, everyone. Welcome back and Happy New Year. I hope you all had a great holiday season. We're very excited to be right back into it this week, first week of January, and we're very excited to be welcoming back the incredible cellist and a good friend, Joshua Roman. Joshua, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to come back.
Yeah, and it's probably going to, judging by the fire behind you, it's a lot warmer here than it is where you are right now.
Yes, I am slightly north of New York City right now, watching the snow melt outside, sitting by a fire, drinking tea, thinking about Prokofiev. This one does.
Yeah, it sounds perfect.
Yeah.
This week you are going to be performing Prokofiev's Sinfonia Concertante, which may otherwise be translated to Symphony Concerto. It's essentially a concerto in the sense that there is a soloist, you, playing in front of the orchestra. But why the title Symphony Concerto rather than just cello concerto?
There are several different schools of thought, even in the time that I've been working on this, and that people that I know have posted about it, including myself on social media. We've ignited several fiery discussions about whether Sinfonia Concertante or Symphony Concerto is more appropriate. Mm-hmm. Sinfonia Concertante is an earlier form that was often used when you had multiple players playing a concerto together. And it's not entirely clear why he would have chosen that title. Symphony Concerto, the English version, the Italian version, the mixed version, is a little more, there's a little more to grab onto with that. Doesn't sound as cool to me, but the argument for Symphony Concerto is that it's not just a concerto, it really is also a symphony. The orchestra is heavily involved. Of course, the cello is working incredibly hard, and there's a cadenza. It's very virtuosic, but you have individuals and groups from the orchestra that are highlighted throughout. And it's much more than a show-off piece for the soloist. It really is a collaboration that not only in terms of energy, but in terms of length and scope requires an orchestra to really give. And I think that's where the symphony-concerto element comes in.
More of an equal partnership than some concertos might be.
That's right.
It kind of reminds me of the Brahms piano concertos, which are technically called concertos, but they're incredibly demanding and incorporating of the orchestra itself. So
it's true. It's something that I love. I mean, I find this showing off. There's plenty of that in this piece too, though. And I love getting to engage with the members of an orchestra and have that back and forth and feel a mutual inspiration and vision come together. Yeah. So that's the goal.
So this is your, am I correct? This is your first time performing this with orchestra.
It is.
But you've known the piece for many years.
For about 20 years. I heard it and immediately, which is saying a lot for someone, especially at the time, with no money, immediately went and bought the expensive cello part and piano part and learned it as quickly as I could. Just walked into a room and absorbed the piece as best I could and tried to play it every chance that I got with piano covering the orchestra part. And this is a dream for a long time to play this with orchestra. It's a piece that doesn't get programmed very often, I think for a number of reasons, including its demands on the orchestra and the time that takes to put together, but also because of the demands on the soloist. And coming back to it for this has been a really, really great experience for what I'm finding now, and also for the memories of first hearing it and falling in love with it, and how much that has grown now that I'm 20 years a different person, but this piece is the same piece.
Right. So what is your process when you begin learning a piece? And talk about how that relates to your process, your discovery process from something that you first dove into 20 years ago and now revisiting it at this point in your career?
It's such a good question. I think my process for learning pieces has actually changed quite a bit. When I learned this piece, there was something that I heard in the piece that really grabbed me. And I think it was the breadth of emotion, the exuberance of the virtuosity, and there's a real magic in a lot of the sounds, even the fast sounds. Sometimes I tend to be a little bit myopic and see magical things as the slow, mysterious things, but there's also this beautiful, magical, fast-paced, rhythmic energy in there that just captures my imagination. So all of those things were there, but when I first learned the piece, it was really just about getting it into my fingers and getting it into my head. And I knew that I loved it, and now I wanted to be able to play it. So as quickly as possible, just absorb, I guess technically memorize, I don't think of it as that, but get everything internalized and be able to play it and feel those feelings that I got from listening to it, feel them coming through my hands, through my body, and turning into sound. And then starting to find my way with things that I thought could be done differently, what have you. My approach has changed quite a bit, and now it's much more similar when I learn a piece to when I revisit a piece, actually. And so what I've been doing with it now is taking a much more measured approach, starting from that same initial place of what is the unique quality, what are the unique qualities of this piece on the grand scale, those very things, the feeling of almost being in a Russian fairy tale, the love that has to span octaves in melody form, that it has to just be so big, it can't be contained in these small things, the ferocity of intention. These things fit together in a way. So still starting there, but then diving in and thinking more about how the form captures that, how each movement is different from the next, what might be similar within one movement. I think the second movement is the best example because it's really long. It's about 20 minutes, and could be a complete piece itself. It would be weird how it starts that way, but it's watching, for example, the second theme develop over the course. You hear it, I think, now I'm totally forgetting, 3 or 4 times, maybe even 4 times, and more in little chunks, but 4 major times. And it's slightly different each time, and sometimes drastically different. And why? What's happening? To think about that, to find a way to communicate that in how I'm playing, and only then from there to get to the notes and the finger movements and all of that. So rather than jumping straight from 30,000 foot view to microscopic view, to take the elevator down along the way and look at how it all fits together. And I've just been finding so much in this piece to love. It's fantastic.
It's interesting you talk about the different characters that you discover throughout the piece and between movements. And I find it such an interestingly constructed piece. And it certainly does not fit the 19th century concerto convention of fast movement, which is one of the most substantial movements of the piece, followed by a second slow movement and then another very fast movement to wrap things up. It's almost backwards in that sense. And like you say, the middle movement is the weightiest of the 3. And furthermore, the compositional language that Prokofiev employs is almost very different worlds from one movement to the next, more so than what I think I'm used to in any concerto. But I mean, some of the consonants that it comes out in the third movement almost sounds unusual after the more contemporary language that he employs in the first 2 movements.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think
excuse me.
I agree. It's all of a sudden I'm thinking about Brahms. I'm thinking about Brahms symphonies and sonatas in particular, because I play the cello. I'm thinking about the F major sonata, and the first, second, and third movements could be an entire piece, and then you have the last movement, and it's slower. It's not the most exciting, but it's always felt to me, and I forget which symphony he does this into. It might be 2 or 4 or even both of them, where the last movement is just a little laid back. It's not that big finish, but to me, it always felt like a big hug after an epic journey. And, you know, The Hobbit, for example, if you watch the series or read the books too, but I'm thinking of watching the 3 movies and The Return of the King. Like, it feels like the last hour of it is
huge denouement,
winding down. You know, it's taking time to process before you leave the piece. And in some ways, I feel like there's an element of that because of that warmth, that consonance in the third movement, that we've been through so much, but it's been so all over the place, even just in the second movement. But when you put the first and the second movement together, you've covered so much territory that you almost need something to, it's not a palate cleanser, it's something to help you settle.
It's an appropriate balancing mechanism to work with what we've already been through. It's in almost a different way. I mean, that makes me then think of not just Brahms, but Beethoven, you know, who had, you know, we love to joke about how there's just all this 5-1 at the end of every major Beethoven movement or piece. But it's not just histrionics or fireworks. I mean, it's actually like we've been through such a journey of working out so many ideas that it's balancing that. So I think you really touch on something interesting and meaningful there, that it's appropriately balancing out everything that we've been through to that point.
I think so. The first movement is, for me, has some of the most mysteriously magical moments, and it really sets the scene for, to say it sets the scene is a little diminutive. It's a big, beautiful, great movement in its own right. But because you've been through that power, as well as by that point, by the time you finish the first movement, you've been through extreme power and passion, but also just wisps of texture and of feelings and of magical things that are then translated into something pretty different, but of the same basic material in a conceptual way, if nothing else, in the second. And yes, tying it all together, or giving a foil for coming back to the world. If you're in fairy tale land, for example, coming back to the world in the third.
Yeah. Well, I definitely can't wait to hear it. I know our audience will be very eager to hear it as well. And Courtney is very excited to be performing this piece with you this week. So thank you for joining us to chat about this today. Safe travels to Jacksonville, and look forward to seeing you very soon.
Thank you. I can't wait. I will try to find a special mask instead of a special tie.
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite things about you is you always bring a very, very high fashion game. So I'm excited to see what you have for a mask.
Well, yeah, mask. Okay, now that I've said that, we'll see. But it's going to be, I'm really looking forward to this. To be in the same room with musicians making music right now is very special, and I'm very grateful that finding ways to take care of us during that, and wish everyone healthy and safe New Year. And let's do this. Let's have some magic and take care of each other and stay healthy.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Well, thank you again, Joshua, and we will see you very soon.
Thank you, Tony.
All right. Bye-bye.